I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ralph. Next up, we're going to have a prayer by Father Michael Rohr with St. Dominic Church.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Gracious God of mercy, justice, and love, we ask that you give us this evening listening hearts, that we may hear each other, understand the feelings that we are experiencing, and the difficulties that we face, that together we may find a solution to the problems that we face, and all may be done to the greater glory of your name. We ask that as we go forth this evening, you keep us safe, that we may return to our homes safely and with joyful hearts. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you, Father Michael. My name is Anne LeBlanc. I am president of Lakeview Civic Improvement Association, and I'd like to welcome all of you to Lakeview. I'd like to welcome all of you to St. Dominic Gym. This is where we have our meetings regularly, and I can tell you we never have this many people. So thank you for coming, and we're so glad you're here. I see a lot of people in the audience that I recognize from our neighborhood, but I've also met tonight many people from other neighborhoods. And neighborhoods is what makes New Orleans so great. We don't have cookie-cutter neighborhoods. We have unique neighborhoods. They're neighborhoods with unique characteristics, unique strengths, unique challenges. But in the differences of those neighborhoods and in the diversity of this great city that we live in, we derive a lot of strength. And we derive this strength when we're faced with common issues, common concerns, common enemies. And did Katrina teach us that lesson or what? Well, tonight we're here for a common issue. And we're all brought together, we're all together, and that common issue is our deplorable infrastructure. Our streets stink. They have stunk for a long time. And that's why we're here. But we're not going to moan and groan. We're going to talk about solutions. You'll see on the screen, we've got several items that we're going to discuss. The first speaker I want to talk about for a moment. A couple months ago, right out here in this parking lot, when we had about an eighth of the people that are here now for one of our general meetings, I ran into him, and in the back of his SUV were a bunch of signs. Now, they weren't campaign signs because there was no election going on, but they were the Fix My Street signs. And he said, do you mind if I hand these out at the meeting? And I said, sure, why not? He said, I really don't know what else to do about the street problem. And having been president of this association for a year and a half, and not always getting the answers I wanted to hear about our streets, I said, I agree with you. It's a frustrating situation. But honestly, I thought, what the heck is going to be accomplished by a street sign? Well, you guys are what was accomplished by a street sign. And we've got street signs now in 15 neighborhoods, and it's gone viral on the internet, and we can thank one person for that. It's a grassroots effort, and our hope is that out of this will be some productive, positive efforts to fixing a huge problem. So I would like to introduce him right now, Robert Lupo of Lupo Enterprise.
Well, I know this is the largest audience I would have spoken to, and I just wish my daughter, who lives in Dallas right now, is anxious to come back to New Orleans, could be here, as well as my son and our daughter-in-law and our new little grandson of only 7 months, to see the kind of response that we get from the citizens of New Orleans. It really lets you show what type of city we live in today. I've got a couple of short things I'd like to say, because I think they're important to let you know how we got here tonight. First of all, I want to thank our elected officials that found the time, that made the time to come here. Susan Guidry, who's our district council person, Stacy Head, and Jared Brissett from the other team. And I also want to thank Cedric Grant. Cedric, your title right now is Chief Deputy. If it wasn't for Cedric, what does get done in this city would never get done. He's really an incredible individual. He's been a public servant for I don't know how many years, Cedric. Over 40 years. And I want to thank him for representing the mayor here tonight. We're here tonight, though, and Ann touched on it briefly, to work together to try to form a starting point to move this plan forward. We don't know what the plan is right now, but we know the problem of decaying streets and subsurface infrastructure throughout our city is not something we're willing to live with. Citizens, though, out here tonight, please understand, and I'm going to read this because I put it down, I think, appropriately. This is not about finding fault. This is not about giving examples of problems. We all know the problems. This exercise tonight should be productive in content and informative and polite in the type of comments made. And we will make sure that when we get to the point where we're getting public comment, that we stop anyone if they decide that that's not what they came here for. I know that we're all frustrated over not being here tonight. Personally, I had no idea of the magnitude of frustration that lied right underneath the surface. As Ann spoke, I had no idea that coming here with a few signs one afternoon would turn into what we see today and we see on the TV, the radio, and the newspapers. This problem's been kicked down the road for an entire generation of elected officials, and we can't continue, or our children and our grandchildren will be driving on dirt roads. As an aside, just yesterday, I was contacted by the Bureau of Governmental Research. They've already done some research on this problem, and I'm really glad to hear that. And I'm going to read you a very short one-sentence or two-sentence quote. In their report, it says that New Orleans street maintenance was grossly underfunded, and although federal money has been providing relief, the funding will dry up soon. Furthermore, even after federally funded projects are completed, miles of local streets will remain a shambles, requiring major capital investment. I think we all know about the FEMA work that's being done, and we're very grateful for that. The administration worked very, very hard to raise the dollars that FEMA was willing to give the city after the storm, but we all know that that really isn't a Band-Aid at this point. The current administration has asked for $2.4 million for street maintenance in their 2014 budget. That's only 1.5% of the city's total budget. This is obviously an incredibly small fraction of what's necessary. So I just want you to know, Cedric and council people, and please deliver this to the mayor. The citizens here wish to partner with the city's administration in order to solve the problems created by decades of neglect to our city's street and our subsurface infrastructure. So, getting to that point, Ann, I think it's time for a little bit of history and background on this, and we've got some people here from our Lakeview area that are willing to come up and give you a little bit of information along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I'm going to address real briefly here. The source of the problem, and this is from research we've done, this is what we've been told at our various meetings. It's really been a situation that's been neglected for 40 years. Roads are built on swampland and high water table. There's apparent, at least from our perspective, lack of inter-department communication in city government. Whether that's 100% true, I mean, sometimes perception is not accurate, but that is perceived. Of course, Katrina didn't do anybody any favors. The good news is we have some money for Katrina repair. But like Robert just said, it's Band-Aids. And Lieutenant Colonel Jernigan has said before, quite openly in our meetings, it's not going to do it. We've got some money there, but it's not going to be enough. So what's the solution? I wrote a newsletter article for our little newsletter that we put out. And I said, you know, really at the end of the day, are we all going to have to pay more taxes? So we researched kind of what we pay already. And then according to the District of Columbia, they do a nationwide comparison of taxes. And based on a 3-family, $75,000 a year In 2012, we were 20 out of 51 cities. So we're not at the bottom, but yet our streets are way at the bottom. So that's a concern, obviously. Part of the taxes that are factored into this table are property taxes. And according to the New Orleans Assessor's Office, property taxes are supposed to and described as a tool to maintain infrastructure. We looked at it, and we're not experts, we all have our careers, and this is all volunteer. So please correct us if we're wrong when the elected officials speak. But it looked to us that there's a low millage priority. If you see the arrow at the bottom, street and traffic control, it looks like 1.9 of the mills are going to streets, if we read that correctly. Whereas 45 mills are going to the school board, 2.99 are going to Audubon Institute. Now, it's not that we don't like Audubon, we don't like schools, but do we need to prioritize? As Robert mentioned, the percentage of our total budget for the Department of Public Works is 2.9% if you look at the general fund, 1.5% if you look at the total adopted budget, which includes your general fund and your non-general fund monies. So it makes you wonder, why is that? Why is it such a low percentage? Now, there are big ticket items that we all want funded adequately, the police department, fire department, but at some point we've got to address the street problem. The other problem we had, and this was even as we were preparing this presentation, we couldn't get or embrace a number. What is it going to cost to really fix our streets? Is it millions? Is it billions? How long a period of time would it take to really fix our streets? Where will the funds come from? So we volunteers got together and we started first with goals. What are the goals? And Robert again touched on it. We've got to engage in a partnership with the city, private-public partnership. And this administration has been very good with that. They have NORD-C, which is recreational cat teams. We have neighborhood participation programs. I've been to a number of round table meetings where there's engagement and they really do try. And I think that's the opportunity we need to seize now. We need to use our private capabilities and match those with the public. And I'm going to touch on some overriding goals, and then Freddie Yoder, who is the head of our infrastructure committee, is going to get into some specifics. First thing we've got to do is have citizen solidarity and support. There's going to be a lot of people dedicated, a lot of volunteer hours. If you had any idea the number of volunteer hours that have gone into post-Katrina efforts, etc., people have to be behind this. And I have one question of this audience. If you knew 100% sure that the money you paid in a reasonable tax hike would fix your streets and they would be beautiful, would you do it? Show of hands.
Yes!
And I think that the condition there is if you're 100% sure, and that's what we have to work on. We also have to include everybody. It's not just a Lakeview problem, although we believe it is sometimes, but it's not. It's Gentilly, it's Uptown. There's other areas of the city that are greatly affected, and we need to include those people. And then we have to cooperate, again, private entities, public entities, state DOT, federal government, pull everyone together. This is the big one, it's transparency and trust. Again, perception is everyone's reality. In New Orleans, there's this history of lack of trust. I think that's gotten better, but until there's trust and transparency, nobody's going to go to the voting booth and vote for a property tax hike if they don't think it's going to fix the situation. We need to be creative. Freddie Yoder's got some wonderful ideas he's going to be speaking about now. And finally, it's got to be sustainable. This is not going to be an overnight fix. It's going to have to continue beyond the terms of the elected officials that are here today. So it needs to be sustainable. So next is Freddie, and Freddie has this terrific plan that we're proposing, and we appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Actually, I don't have all the answers, but I do have a plan that I think over the long haul. I don't have all the answers, but what I do have is a plan that I think over the long haul will help resolve the issues that we have. Daisy, thanks for coming out tonight. I'd like to recognize our councilman at large, appreciate it. Along with Susan, Stacy, they're all close friends. Cedric, I appreciate it. We've worked together over the years to try to take care of some of the problems we've had. And tonight, what we're here to talk about is forming a solid partnership, a sharing and trusting relationship. I don't want to get this relationship started on the wrong foot. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. We're going to talk positively about what I think needs to be done, what this committee thinks needs to be done. And then we're going to work for the next several years to try to accomplish it. This problem that we had didn't crop up overnight. This problem we have didn't develop with this administration. I've spent most of my life working on this problem with some success, but limited success. We've talked about a lot of different things. We've implemented some things, but we never did get the job before it was done. If I live long enough, we're going to get this problem done. But it's going to take everybody's help in order to do it. It's not going to take false promises. It's not going to take people that get committed but don't implement. It's going to take everybody in this room and everybody in this city. This is a citywide problem. So we're here tonight to start the journey. Every journey starts with one step. So we're going to start tonight. The 5-point plan that we talked about is town hall meetings. The first of those town hall meetings is tonight. So we're here. We want to listen to constructive ideas. We want to hear from the people that are here in this room. And we're going to document all those things. And we're going to categorize them, and we're going to put them and incorporate them into our plan. So that's the first thing that we're going to do, is have town hall meetings tonight and on a regular basis. In the future, those town hall meetings will be a means to convey the progress that we've made and to talk about new issues that come up. I'm not here tonight to tell you we've got all the answers. We're here tonight to start a process. We're here tonight to propose that we organize an executive committee that's going to be made up of representatives from all over New Orleans. We're going to keep that committee manageable. It's going to be limited to the number of people so that we can get things done. That committee is going to be the warehouse of how everything comes in and everything goes out. That committee is going to give the city of New Orleans and the representatives of the city of New Orleans a mechanism, a body that they can communicate with. It's going to give the citizens of New Orleans an opportunity to voice their opinions back to a central committee. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do that with subcommittees that report back to the executive committee. Now what you're going to hear tonight is going to sound very much like what we did after Katrina. After Katrina, when everybody was on their back trying to figure out which way was up, including the city, we took aggressive steps and we formed an executive committee. And we were on our road to recovery before the city was. And I think that's a compliment to the people in this community, but it's also a sign of what we can do if we all put our heads together and we're willing to dedicate time and effort and maybe some treasure into resolving this thing. So we're going to form those subcommittees. We're going to have a website that's going to be posted. It's already been posted once. It'll be posted at the end. It'll give everybody an opportunity that if you're truly interested, and this is the key to the whole thing, if you really want the streets fixed, you got to step to the plate. Everybody in this room, if you're not ready to step to the plate, then be satisfied with what we got. Because you heard Ann talk about the percentages. 40 years I've been listening to we don't have enough money. 40 years I've been watching people kick the can down the road and knock it back over the net. It needs to stop. And it needs to stop with the citizens of this city deciding that it's a problem that we want to take by the throat and we want to resolve it. So it's going to start with those subcommittees. It's going to start by assessing the overall damage to the streets. It's going to start with getting our arms around the magnitude of the problem. I don't know any problem that you can't fix if you understand how big the elephant is. We need to find out how big the elephant is. And we need to do it with cooperation from the city. We need to give them that information. They need to tell us what they need. And we need to do that. So we will start with that survey and evaluation process. After we do that, then what we'll do is we will assess the cost associated with that on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. We will form committees. People on that committee will have the capability to assess what the overall costs are. We will divide up the streets into different groups. We'll talk about sidewalks, curbs, streets, substructure. We'll talk about sewer. We'll talk about water. We'll talk about all those types of things, and then we will determine what works and doesn't work. And then once we do all of that, then we'll prioritize it. We'll talk about the worst of the worst, and we'll talk about the best of the best. The best of the best have to wait. The worst of the worst gets moved to the top of the list. But we can give that information to the city so that now we know what it is. All right, so that's kind of where we are. I'll go into the 5-point plan a little later on. Let me move it along. The secret to our success is to take one step and take it together. We formed 58 subcommittees after the storm. Each one of those subcommittees had a chairman. Each chairman had a task. Each committee had a few or hundreds of volunteers. We were able to produce documentation that was unheard of, not only in this city, but I think throughout the country. We cut the recovery time in half by doing that. So we can do it. We've already done it once. It's a shame that we have to do it again. I don't want to equate the condition of the streets to Katrina, because God only knows it was a horrible thing. The streets are getting pretty bad. And if we don't step up to the plate, then it's not going to get done. We have a proven track record of what works. And this plan is predicated on implementation of that track record and that plan. So we're going to move ahead with that. Okay. Step one is what we have here tonight. The town hall meeting, the call to action, the continued town hall meetings. We can't stop here tonight. If it stops tonight, we've all wasted our time. If it stops a year from now, we've all wasted our time. This is a $9.9 billion problem. This is a $500 million problem on the 80 miles of streets in Lakeview. It's a $500 million problem just for our neighborhood. But everything can be resolved if you break it down into small components. The old adage that it's like eating an elephant has never been more true than it is with the street problem. So we need to work on it. We need to celebrate our little successes. We need to call that to the attention of the news media. And we need to move ahead with it. So, organize the subcommittees. We're going to have budgetary committees. The purpose of those budgetary committees is to get into every minute detail of where there's money. And that money will come from the city, from their budgets. That money will come from FEMA. That money will come from the state. Those budgets will come from maybe even the Federal Highway Administration. Sewage and Water Board. We will not leave one cash register unopened. It has the capability of supplying funds back to us. You can't resolve the problem if you don't see what funds are available and then determine where the shortfall is. So that's the goal. And determine the magnitude of the problem, determine what funds are available, and then move ahead from there. We talked about estimating, we talked about evaluating the cost. Sewage and Water Board's implementing a fee increase. Let's talk about how much money from that fee increase is going to go into the repair of the subsurface drainage, which is going to go into sewer and water. How much of that money is going to go towards those underground items that need to be fixed, that are part of the overall problem. Let's talk about how you're going to access those areas going through the roads that we have that are in such deplorable shape. Let's make sure that they don't tear up the roads that are in good shape, trying to fix the things that are bad. But you know what? It's all about partnership. It's not about chastising anybody for the way they do things, but being a voice and coming forward with inspections. So that's what it's all about. All right. Evaluation of the shortfall. Work with the city, work with the state, work with the federal government to determine what our shortfalls are, prioritize those items, work on cost-saving ideas, work on additional things that can happen as far as production is concerned, construction. I just happen to make my living in construction, so I know a little bit about how the process works. We do pretty big projects. This is just a big project, a very big project. This is a project that nobody has ever undertaken before in the history of the city of New Orleans, where you have a cooperative effort between city government and the citizens of this fine city. If we want this city to become the best that it can become, it's going to take everybody's effort. So, let me summarize what we have. Town hall meetings, this is the 5-point plan. 5-point town hall meetings, that's the first part of the plan. An executive committee to oversee the whole operation. The executive committee is going to monitor and receive and document all the subcommittees. The survey and inspection is going to be done by one of those committees. The cost and necessary funding is going to be done and reported back to the executive committee. And then we're going to find a source to fulfill our needs as far as money is concerned. And then we're going to start the process. So that's kind of how it works. This problem took 40 years to get to the point it's at right now. It took my whole lifetime almost. It's going to take us a long, long time to dig ourselves out of the hole that we're in right now. But you know what? I think we have most confidence that with everybody's help and support, that we're going to get there. I also know that if we don't do anything, and we create a negative attitude, and we point fingers, and we set blame, the process is never going to succeed. I'm not opposed to accountability. I'm very much in favor of holding everybody accountable, including our elected officials. And I don't think that they're in a position where they don't want to be held accountable. I think they do. I think they want to get this problem fixed. I've talked to each one of the people that are at this front table and the majority of the people that are in this front row. And I'm here to tell you, they don't wake up in the morning and say, let me go see how I can screw it up. They don't wake up in the morning and say, we're not going to do anything. I know these people personally. They're dedicated. They want help. And we're going to give them some help. And it's going to be up to them to either receive it or not receive it. But I believe that this is a great start. I think the showing that we have in this gym tonight sends a really strong message to everybody. So it's up to us. We've kicked the can down the road for a long time. And now it's time to stop kicking the can down the road. This is not their problem. This is our problem. They might own the streets, but we're the ones that have to drive them. So I don't want my children and my grandchildren to be faced with this problem. I want us to take this problem and I want us to commit to do something with it. And I ask you, how worse does the problem have to get before we say enough's enough? Do those streets out there have to go back to a natural state of gravel and sand? Do our cars have to be continuously fixed and repaired because we didn't take any action? We've got two choices. You can continue to blame the elected officials. You can continue to hope that they can pull a rabbit out of a hat and find $9.9 billion. And I'm sorry, there's no Easter Bunny and there's no Santa Claus. That's not going to happen. We can hold them accountable, but we have to start today and working on this thing. And we need, all of us in this room need a sharing of time, talent, and treasure. And we need to understand this is not for the faint-hearted. This is not a short-term fix. This is the real deal that's going to take us a long time to get it resolved, but it's all going to start tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
expertise. When we met, it was like, well, what do? Do we just invite elected officials and let someone, people line up at the mic and badger them and all of that? And we're like, no, let's try to think of some things, some ideas. They may not be perfect, they may not be cast in stone, but let's get creative, let's be positive, let's be productive. So now, the turn is the elected officials. You've listened to us for about a half an hour, and we're interested to see what you think. We'd like to call Deputy Mayor Cedric Grant, if you'd like to come up first, and then council persons at large, and then our wonderful council person.
Thank you. Good evening. As Freddie indicated to you, Freddie and I kind of started in this business together about 40 years ago. I've been doing this, some version of infrastructure in the city for that long, and certainly know the depth and scope of the problem. And we are here to be a part. There's much information we can provide to you. We commit to that partnership right now. To all. We can tell you the whole story, and I've been dying to tell the whole story. Okay? It is a $9 billion problem, but it's one that is going to have to be dealt with based on what I heard here tonight, which is action, cooperation, organization, and we'll join you in the evaluation. We've got that underway for some of the work that we're doing right now, so we can share loads of information with you about the problem and the resources available to deal with it. It is not an easy thing to take on because, quite honestly, the cost of this just continues to grow. I wish I could tell you an absolute number, but the truth of the matter is, in the world that I live in, it's all about public bid. So what might have one day cost $3 million might on a 30-day later cost $3.5 million based on market conditions. So it's a bit of a moving target, but not how much. I don't think you could suggest that it's anything short of $9 or anything more of $9. It is that. It is top to bottom. We live in a very difficult place to live. To build roads here is not the common thing. There's no rock here. There's nothing that you start from mud. So we're ready to work with you. We're ready to share all the information we have. We put some information together that we believe that obviously the next meeting will be the best place to begin to tell you the full story that we have to present to you. But we have all the data that you will need to begin to address this problem, and we'll be right there with you.
It's on. Okay, now to well, first I'd just like to say thank you so much to all the people that are so engaged and to all the people that put so much work behind this. I feel like, it's preaching to the choir and the choir is preaching to the preacher, because infrastructure is one of the issues that I believe that we need to spend more time, money, and energy on. And so now that we have the force of the people behind us, I know that we'll get it done. I have long believed that there are fundamentals that the government has an obligation to fulfill before anything else. These include, of course, public safety and infrastructure such as streetlights and streets. And I've done a lot of research on this, so I know a lot of these off the top of my head, but I did a lot more digging in the last few weeks preparing for this meeting, and I want to fix a few of the, I know it's hard for y'all to gather some of this data, so I've got some information for you that can help crystallize the magnitude of the problem, frankly, even worse than the information you got today. In 2014, we dedicated, it was actually $3.7 million to street repairs, drainage, and cleanout. It's only $3.7 million. I firmly believe that a larger percentage of our $505 million general fund budget, as well as a higher percentage of our $18 million in federal grants, should be dedicated to streets. At a minimum, we should earmark 5% or $25 million to these fundamental obligations. But even that, as Freddie outlined, would not be nearly enough. So then the question is, what do we do? Well, I want to be real clear about some important facts that you need to know. Again, in 2014, and you can expect an increase for 2015, but not dramatic, our general fund budget, that's our daily operating budget, was $505 million. Half of this was spent on police, fire, and debt service. So before we even get out of the gate, we have spent 50% of our money on obligations that we can't shirk. So that gives us about $262 million for every other city service. Now, then one of the questions is, where does this money come from to give us our $505 million in general fund dollars? Well, $114 million comes from property taxes, and the remainder comes from fines, fees, sales tax, and city earnings. So we have to understand first, we know that we've got a mammoth problem, and second, we've got to figure out how to fund it. Well, understanding the problem, and I was so glad to hear reference to the BGR's report. It's one that I keep on my desk and I've read several times, and I would suggest that every single person in this room, it came out in 2008, I keep mentioning it, but I feel like, with Cassandra talking, but nobody listened. But y'all are clearly listening, so I'm excited about this. The Street Smarts Maintaining and Managing New Orleans Road Network, and it lays out very clearly what we need to do. We need to have a street management plan, and it's called, it's called a street maintenance program. And it's an adoption of a system by the city to objectively assess street conditions, the cost of the repairs, and the timing of repairs. So it takes away the guesswork from the departments, and it takes away the guesswork of the council members trying to push for streets in one area versus another. Now, how can your plan integrate well with this thoughtful plan that the BGR has brought to us that is a best practice around the country? Well, number one, the city's got to fund it. We've got to come up with the money to put toward putting the structure together. But your man hours that you've already suggested can certainly be used for the initial assessment of the condition of the streets. Again, if you read this report, it tells you exactly, you've got to measure the street, you've got to talk about whether it has curbs, you have to talk about whether it has subsurface drainage, etc. So the concepts that you have tonight works perfectly with a street maintenance program that is thoughtful, that is transparent, and is based on data and scientific information. But then the real problem is, once we've figured out what we need to do, and we've got a comprehensive, thoughtful, data-based, transparent plan to fix our streets, how do we pay for it? Well, out of the general fund, we can't, even if we dedicated 5% of the general fund. So what are our options? Well, there are several options. One, of course, is working every single day to recover every dollar that's due to the city, and it's something that my colleagues and I and the administration work on every single day. But even that is not going to bring meaningful change to the condition of the streets. So we could option a neighborhood millage could be passed to increase property taxes in areas where the funds will in fact be spent, kind of like security districts. Second option is we increase citywide ad valorem tax recovery or property tax recovery. Third is a hybrid, which would be a city contribution matched with a local area contribution, for example, 50-50. But from my perspective, if choices 2 or 3, which is an increase in taxes, are considered, we must, before that, achieve tax equity. Now, what does that mean? Well, New Orleans loses tens of millions of dollars, and up to easily bond out the amount of money necessary to fix our streets in tax revenues every year, because more than 15,000 parcels are tax exempt. Less than 35%. Less than 35% of the properties in the city of New Orleans are subject to property taxation. That is not sustainable. The market value on these properties exceeds $13 billion. So how do we get to tax equity? Well, it's something that the administration did a tax fairness study on and came up with some great recommendations. We need to make sure that those recommendations are acted upon. We need to urge private universities and colleges to pay pilots or payment in lieu of taxes, which is done nationwide by schools such as Boston College, Boston University, Dartmouth, Yale, and Harvard, to help offset the cost of services provided to these fine institutions. 2, we should require that nonprofits comply with state law, which requires that every year they renew all of their exemptions. This will ensure that the privilege, and it is a privilege, of receiving a tax exemption will be granted only to active nonprofits that can remain in compliance with state and federal law. 3 is to take a more narrow approach to properties owned by nonprofits that are used for commercial purposes. Examples include rental properties and properties with businesses that actually make a profit. 4, and this is one I work on every single day, encourage governmental entities such as Nora and Hano to sell all of their surplus property. Hano owns right now a minimum of $10 million in market value of surplus property in the uptown and central city area that it has sat on and done nothing with for over a decade, despite probably 25 or 30 letters by my office and urging time and time again. It is not doing anything other than sitting fallow and detracting from the quality of life of the neighborhoods. Next. It's denied exemptions for vacant and blighted properties that were acquired by nonprofit for development. Unfortunately, we had some very good intentioned nonprofits who acquired properties to do ostensibly future development, and that never happened. Those exemptions should be taken back, and they should be put on the tax rolls. In sum, the solution to our miserable infrastructure is clear. The city must immediately invest in the pavement management system and work with you and many other residents to make sure that we get the most cost-effective and accurate data to implement that plan. And at the same time, we must address the property tax inequity issues. Unless we're at a point where we get more than 35% of the properties contributing to our city services, I cannot support a drastic increase to fund for basic city services. I always try to come with sort of my outline because I talk fast and then rattle off stuff, and it's hard to follow sometimes. So Lauren has copies of this, and if you'd like another copy, call my office, 658-1060. It also shows what the areas of the city pay in ad valorem taxes, because there's often some confusion about what neighborhood pays the most and gets the least. And so you'll see that everybody pays a lot and doesn't get a whole lot. So we're all equal.
That you came to our meeting a couple months ago and you said the squeaky wheel gets the grease and you guys don't squeak loud enough. Well, are we doing a better job today? Member Jason Williams.
I want to thank you all for your dedication. I know that there's kids at home, there's homework that needs to be done. There's a lot more things that you all would like to be spending your time on today, but I appreciate this packed gymnasium, and I want to first say that you all are blessed to have someone like Freddie with the expertise that he has, with the dedication to his community that he has. He says he knows a little about building. He knows about big projects, and he knows how to get them done. And this is probably the biggest project that he will ever have worked on with the beast of city government to work with. So I take my hat off to you, and I take my hat off to this team of folks that have put this together. Because unfortunately in this city, politicians don't get a whole lot of things done. People got to get things done. When you look post-Katrina, the people of this city got things done. So thank you all very much for that. And I really need to say that. If this entity works, if this body works, this model of citizen engagement works, it will be a blueprint for the rest of this city that has just as big of an issue as we have here. So I'm very hopeful, and I'm going to do everything in my ability to stand with you to make sure that this plan works going forward, that you get the information that you requested from the city, that you get it promptly, that they engage. The city council will certainly be engaging with you. I can tell you I stand with Councilmember Head. We met today in preparation of coming over here, and I stand with her on every single point that she made. One of the biggest points one of the biggest points is taxing nonprofits. You all have to really dig in here, and that affects my alma mater, that Tulane University, that affects the Archdiocese, that affects everybody. Because when you start talking about the amount of for-profit properties, not even getting into anything else, we're talking about properties that they're making money on, they don't pay taxes on. But if they catch fire, the fire department has to come. Something happens, they're gonna call the police department, they're gonna use the streets to get back and forth to them. All right, so that is money that we are leaving on the table. All right, and we've left it on the table for a very, very long time. I'll give you one very good example of that. The Pier Marquette Hotel, down there next to Immaculate Conception, was once owned by a nonprofit. And it lay vacant and fallow for a very long time until there was a threat, until they were threatened with having to pay taxes on the property. So you know what, they sold it, and now it's a beautiful hotel, it's in commerce, and we're getting tax dollars from it. So that has to happen. When Freddie says that it's a big elephant that's got to be eaten bit by bit, he's absolutely right, because it is not a new problem. We have not had good streets in this city in my lifetime, and we never will unless we start working the way you're talking about working right now. You have my commitment to do that. And you know, I'm not going to talk at you. I was excited to get the packet of information and start reading it, and you can rest assured that my doors will be open going forward to make sure that we can get this done. It's not this administration's fault. We have underfunded fixing our streets for at least 2 administrations, and now it's time to get started.
Next up, we have Councilmember Guidry, who's been a real champion for us. She's always there when we have questions, and she's helped us in so many ways. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ann, and wow, I come here all the time for Lakeview Civic meetings, and it is amazing to see this place so incredibly full. Lakeview Civic pulls them in, but this is amazing, and it's great to see so many faces from not only all over District A, but from all over the city. I want to thank the Fix My Street folks for gearing everybody up into this and for organizing it along with the LCIA folks. And I want to thank also my staff who I did not require them to be here, but they thought it was important for them to be here tonight because they are the ones who take your calls every day. They are the ones who respond to your emails every day. They read about how you cannot back out of your driveway because the hole in the street in front of your driveway has gotten too big to use your driveway. So if my staff could stand up, I would really appreciate them being appreciated for a moment. Right over here. Right over here. Matt Fraser, Rico, Sterling, Mike Martin, Megan Langhoff, Kelly Butler, and I know even our intern is here, Max Cialino is here somewhere, and Fitz is here, who takes care of our security, and I just want to thank them all because they deal with this every day. They are the boots on the ground. So I firmly believe in the potential for strong, dedicated citizen involvement to make a difference. When Freddie is talking about, we've done this before, I had the privilege to be a part of that group. I was recently, after the storm, I became president of my little neighborhood by City Park, Parkview, and in February of 2006, the Bring New Orleans Back Commission report came out and said, bring your neighborhoods back in groups called city planning groups. And Lakeview Civic called up all the neighborhoods in Planning District 5 and said, this report says this is how we're to do it. We are determined to bring ourselves back. Would you join us? And we had 6 or 7 neighborhoods that made up the Planning District 5. And the leaders from those neighborhoods created a District 5 Neighborhood Recovery Steering Committee. And we met for almost 2 years. Right here on Harrison Avenue. We met when there were no lights on. We met when every house was empty. And we started bringing back the lake area and the city park area. And frankly, my neighborhood, we had it good compared to the lake neighborhood, so we were contributing what we could to help bring this area back. And, you know, by the time I got on the council, which at the time we did this, I never knew I would be doing what I'm doing today. But it led to it. When I got on the council, the lake area was strong coming back. And they have continued with that strong committee, subcommittee, organization that I know if we can do that across the city, if you guys can stay engaged for the time it's going to take and partner with the administration, that this can happen and this can work. And I wanted to also mention a couple of other folks who are here tonight. Within 2 days of the time I got the email saying that this meeting was going to be held, I emailed Joe Becker with the Sewage and Water Board. He's the Deputy Superintendent of the Sewage and Water Board. And I emailed the administration, including Cedric Grant and Lieutenant Colonel Mark Jernigan. He's the Director of Public Works. And Mark Jernigan and Joe are also with us tonight, and we're ready to speak and to talk about what the Sewage and Water Board is doing and what the administration is doing. And we also have a couple of our state representatives that I see, State Senator J.P. Morrell and Ed Murray are here. And I don't know if I've missed anybody, but it is a message, I hope, to you that we want very much to get to the point that you want us to be. And I think our council president, who's also the president, the chair of our budget committee, and obviously extremely intelligent in this area, has outlined some ways that can move us there faster. But you guys gotta all be on board when all our nonprofit organizations across the city say, oh, not us. You gotta say, no, yeah, all of us. We are all in this together, and we all have to work together. I'm gonna also quickly mention that, that we now today, for the first time that I think anybody knows of, we have a Department of Public Works person who is stationed at the Sewage and Water Board. The administration has met with FEMA every week for 4 years, so that weekly they are coordinating with FEMA. And what I'm saying here is that there is coordination happening finally, and so when we bring in our citizen groups, that coordination is going to have to be really finely tuned, because, for instance, just recently we got FEMA to agree, after years of pushing on them to do so, to look at the drainage underneath the streets when they do the work that they have obligated themselves to do with regard to our streets, to look at the drainage underneath too. That is very exciting. It is slowed down a little bit getting the work started because we have to remap to map out the drainage. But it means we are going to get so much more from the work that's going to be done through FEMA. So all of this, all of us have to consider, and the group that's formed, that Freddie's talking about, the committees and subcommittees, we need to all get in there and work on a regular basis to make this happen. And I'm going to say what I said from the first time I was campaigning. We need a pavement management system so that all the data we're collecting can go into a repository that we can use forever, that will be there when your grandchildren are coming up and buying their first homes. So, thank you very much. We're with you, and I know now you're with us.
It couldn't pay me enough money to have this gentleman's job, the head of the DPW in New Orleans. Can you imagine how hard a job that is? So we're grateful you're here, and you always come to our meetings when we ask you. And Sharon, your assistant, must email me 5 times a week, so I thank you for that. Next up, we have a council member from District D. I didn't forget about you, I just didn't want to forget that. Jared Brissett.
Thank you. Good evening to all of you, and thank you, Robert, Lakeview Civic, Fix My Streets campaign, Freddie, for your commitment. Where do we go from here? So, number one is that we have to all agree that we're partnering together to move the city forward and have the best infrastructure there is for all of New Orleans citizens. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight and making your voices heard on this important issue facing our city. After years of representing many of you as a state representative on appropriations and fighting for highway monies and programs like Path to Progress that's currently underway throughout the city, I am glad to join my colleagues in tackling this very important issue for our citizens. We all know the conditions of our streets are deplorable. They're poor condition in every part of the city. The large amount of money that it will take and require to fix must be fully addressed, and definitely that total, whatever it may be, is mind-boggling. I hope and expect that we can get to a point where we can see all meaningful improvement over the next 30 years. This issue will occupy the city past any of our terms up here, whether it's the mayor or the council. There is so much road construction, it has been a pain to drive around the city. I actually went into a pothole on Marshall Street on the way here. But even as we can all appreciate this, I am deeply aware that none of this matters if your block resembles a minefield. None of this matters if you've been avoiding the same pothole for the past 10 years. I am very pleased that the work that is being done are underway, and I'm thankful for the federal post-Katrina monies that have made most of this work possible. As I mentioned, the Path to Progress and Recovery Roads program definitely will make a difference, but no, it is not enough. You'll probably hear the number tonight from Cedric Brand, the deputy mayor, about what it would cost the city. Frankly, $350 million a year for the next 20 years is what I understand and appreciate that the city is facing. We simply do not have the sort of money to spare, not even close. Of course, part of the plan to fix streets must be part of a larger plan. Increasing economic opportunity, increasing the tax base. A healthier general fund lets the city better tackle its problems, one of which is the condition of our streets and other infrastructure matters. I asked the Council Fiscal Office to print me the 2014 every single city village. 13.9 towards the general fund, 25.50 towards city bonds, interest and redemption, 16.43 special tax for construction and operation of the drainage system, 0.32 for establishing and maintaining a zoological garden in Audubon Park, 2.99 aquarium, 3.14 public library. These are all villages that have been voted on by the people. 2.90 Orleans Law Enforcement District, special tax plan for the operations improvements by the Parks and Parkway Commission, 1.5 for NORD, 1.90 for street and traffic control device maintenance, and by far the largest is 45.31 constitutional tax for operating and maintaining the separate system of public schools. Now, one meal is roughly $3.28 million. Stacy and many others before me mentioned the issue of tax fairness. I support tax fairness, and another option is to look and see if there should be a reallocation of these villages. The school... The school system, I'm not advocating taking the money away from children. I support K through 12, higher ed. But the school board is not operating the same number of schools today as they were pre-Katrina. And many of you that's familiar with the levee board and flood protection, of course, There's a millage constitutional tax for construction and maintenance. East Bank levy for Orleans Parish, that is 11.67 and 12.56 for the West Bank levy for Orleans Parish. I mention that because all of those, because you should be educated on where the city, your tax dollars are going. On average, how much does one block of a typical street cost? One block, $450,000 to reconstruct, including and replacing all underground utilities. $150,000 to repave, $1,500 to maintain on an annual basis over the design life of the street. Filling potholes, point repairs to pavement, and drainage systems. Usually maintenance of city streets, on average, in a lot of other places, are at least $30 million. The city spends $2 million. The last bond issue was 2004, which was roughly $260 million, and the city is about to finish or run out of those bond projects. Councilmember Hague mentioned most of our budget, 500, which of what I would call after you get over the pensions, the public safety and the debt, there's another one, only 250 for discretionary in the general fund. So basically, I'll end with that. Any of you would like to get a copy of this entire list of villages, I'll be happy to provide it to you. Just call my office. I think as we move forward with these difficult choices as it relates to the city budget, which I am on with many other council members up here, I am fully aware of the significance of this issue. I am committed to working out a solution in partnership with our neighborhoods across the district, and we'll keep you informed and look forward to working and representing you as council member of District D. Thank you.
I'd like to recognize D.A. Canizero, who I believe is here in the back. He's hiding, so he's back there. We're going to move on to our public questions, and the way we're going to do this, we're going to group them, and we're going to ask them in order. And then we're going to allow the elected officials or whomever the question is asked to answer the question. Obviously, we don't want to keep you here all night. So we're going to do it in a very orderly fashion. We're going to limit the comments to 2 minutes. Our president-elect, Brian Anderson, gets a great job of organizing this, and I'm passing the mic to him. So let's be civil, let's be nice, let's be productive.
Thank you very much. So what we did is we asked everyone prior to starting the meeting to put together some questions they had on the blue cards. If for some reason you didn't get a chance to put a question together, feel free at the end to fill out a blue card. Any card that doesn't get read tonight, we are going to take them all, put them together, compile them into some sort of report that we'll be passing out to everyone. What we did was we took 10 out of the 40-something or other that we had, and we tried to group them by redundancy because there were a few with the same kind of questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read out some names of people who have put down some cards that we think are good stuff we want to hear. I'm going to ask you to go to the middle over here where the microphone is. I'll read what you wrote on the card, but then we'll give you 2 minutes to respond. To expound on the card. And then what we'd like to do is we'd like for the council people up here today is to perhaps after the 3 is gone, to give you a few minutes to respond to each one. So the first on the list is Eric Sanji, Mark Udo, and Mark Baum. Eric Sanji, Mark Udo, and Mark Baum. If we go up to the middle, please.
I didn't even get the mic. Because what I did, my name is Eric Sanji. I'm the president of the Bocage Civic Association. And when we heard about the signs over here in Lakeview, we brought this campaign to the West Bank, to Bocage, is the neighborhood that I represent. And we've got a very special message for the mayor. doing this, I got involved because I want my grandchildren to be able to have good streets and be able to be here in the city, live and come back to the city. I have one grandson who lives in Dallas. I would love for him to one day, instead of being a Cowboy fan, to be a Saints fan here in Milwaukee. We want the streets fixed. It's part of the quality of life. The money that we've heard about, like the $5 million coming out of cars for Algiers, won't fix 2 streets in Bogota. So we have to, and I want to commit myself in my neighborhood to working with the team that's here together to get this problem fixed. That's what you make. Thank you, Albert.
Next up is Mark Long.
From what we've heard, I think we've been repairing potholes for a long time. And what I ask is that, given that we see our potholes being fixed every few months, they wash out after about 2 weeks or 2 months of use from the rains that we get. The company that's doing this seems to be reaping a tremendous benefit by these potholes not lasting, these repairs not lasting. Is there any testing being done by the city to assure that what they're doing to repair these potholes is the correct mix and will be and will last for a year or two rather than a few months?
Go ahead, Mr. Anderson, speak, please.
Yes, with the city's budget in balance, which is due in large part to the current administration, and our credit rating improving, why can't we begin to sell municipal bonds at where the interest rates at an all-time low now to start fixing our street issues?
Before we do it, I said up here on this, but if someone from DPW or perhaps Mr. Grant wants to speak. So the 3 questions that were asked are, where will we get the money to fix all of our streets? Does the city perform a material quality test on the potholes to make sure that the fixes stick? And is the city in a position where we can begin to sell municipal bonds to finance significant street repairs?
I'll take the first 2 and I'll leave the quality control to my public works director. First question is, are we ready to sell bonds? The last issue of the 2004 bonds are coming up to $65 million, and so we've been programmed for the previous election where the disputes were called out, so that will be done in November. So yes, it's now time to begin to look at what the next bond program would be. What I can tell you is based on the ever taxation and ability to raise revenue. Any future bond issue would require a tax increase at this point because we're retiring to get on the previous bond for about the next 7 or 8 years. What we work with a 30-year issue, we came off of a 30-year period of time. As they are retired, then we go back out and do that. So yes, we're ready. We're in the middle of the capital improvement plan process, so we'll be proposing what might be the next 5 years of the ability to sell bonds and do that. So we are at that point, and this is a great time to begin the discussion as we finish the previous bond program and begin planning for the next.
All right, good evening. My name is Mark Jerding, and I'm your Director of Public Works. To answer your pothole question, right now, the way we fill potholes in the city is we have 2 repair crews. We send the repair crews out. We divide up the city by council districts. So Council District A, you get a day a week. Council District B, you get a day. Council District C, get a day. D gets a day, and E gets a day. Just for your information, Council District A, your day is Monday. So, we fill potholes using the current DPW maintenance staff. We don't have a contractor that goes out and fills potholes at this point. We have 2 methods, depending on the size of the pothole and what we're looking to do. As you know, a pothole fill is just a temporary fix. The real fix is coming back and repaving the street, but the temporary fix is either a smaller pothole. Normally, we use whole mill asphalt, which, as you see it go into the pothole, you may notice that some of it comes out the side. Whole mill asphalt is intended as a quick fix. It depends on compaction from the equipment we bring and also traffic to compact it into the pothole and make it stick. As you know, we get a lot of rain, so if we repair a pothole and it rains, that's going to impact how long it stays put. For bigger potholes, we do come back and fill it with hot mix asphalt, which is the asphalt you use to pave a street. Those fixes last longer because they're, a bigger fix. They're intended to last longer. Right now, just to let you know, we filled about 15,000 potholes so far this year. Our target is about 20,000. I know that there are a lot more potholes out there than just 20,000 potholes. We're going to fill as many as we can, and we're going to keep working until, we get as much done as we can with the resources we got.
Sorry, Nate, did you want to say something, Ann?
We wanted to take an opportunity before people leave. If you have a sign with you right now, can you hold it up? Because we want to get the media to see that we have signs and we're united before people start. We need to start a song that rhymes. One other thing I want to do, I want to recognize Judge Marullo, who's here, Frank Marullo, and Judge Ron Sibley, who's here.
All right, so the next group is on the list are Reba White, John Lapworth, and Michael Maple. Michael Maple, Reba White, John Lapworth. So Reba's question was, how much did the city receive in FEMA money in total, and where is it? And do we lose it if it's not used? Do we lose it if it's not used by 2017? Is there money sitting in Baton Rouge that is for street improvements not being used? Jefferson Parish has 9 streets, yet they pay lower taxes, so where is all the money gone? Again, a lot of these questions I know have been covered. Does somebody want to speak about the money that has been given to it by FEMA and maybe some of the reasons why it's taking so long for that FEMA money to be used for street improvements?
Oh, you can't understand what this guy says.
Current allocation of FEMA dollars for paving, only paving, is about $400 million. Current dollars for water line replacement and sewer replacement is about another $600 million. So we're in the process on a continuing basis with FEMA of generating more revenue. I'm speaking directly to the mic.
Well, you're doing something wrong for the deputy mayor. Let's see if there's anything.
I'll say it again. Give us the mic, okay. We've been in this process with FEMA for a while, but what we've generated in paving from FEMA is probably a little close to $400 million so far. We haven't stopped, we continue with it. We've also generated about another $250 million water line in sewer repair. The work is beginning and design. The first project is just completed and doesn't run the flood in the Roy Lake Port. There will probably be 20 projects that will go out to bid within the next 6 months across town, and we plan to be doing that work until about 2017, 2018. It's going to be a continuous process. The goal here is very interesting in that what we are hoping is that as we go through the work, we will find more damage so we can do more work. We've assessed each project with them, and they've given us a certain amount of authorization, but we keep telling them, because we know this system very well, that the more you do, the more you're going to need to do. So we've got a commitment as we go through the repairs that as we find additional damage, we will continue to make those repairs. So my hope is that as I go and we do paving repairs and we did some surface repairs, we continue to find damage, and we will do as much work as possible. But quite honestly, we generated about $600 million from FEMA within the last 36 months, just on roads and subsurface work.
One of the old outliners here, so we'll give this 2 minutes.
Ms. Head, thank you so much. You came up with a lot of good things that you were suggesting. We really want to hope to see that they get implemented real soon. A volunteer to come to the office and help you out. Okay, Michael Maples, thank you. I drive to visit friends in Jefferson Parish, and it dawned on me the other day, I would play a little game of Negan. They pay less taxes over there. Maybe it's not necessarily, I hear about where all the money's going, and maybe that's not the problem. Is anyone watching how the money is being spent? Is it possible that we're trying to throw a lot of people at it, so we're taking a lot of labor, so maybe a lot of people we don't need? And if that's the case, I suggest that maybe some of those people start working harder, and then maybe some things will get done that need to get done. And just one other little thing in closing. Gee whiz, if you can find some of those people who aren't paying the taxes because their house isn't worth more than $75,000 in the Orleans Parish area, maybe we can get some money from them.
All right, so the last 3 names we have is Marion Freestad, FJ Hebert, and Debbie Berthelot. Anybody still here? Marion Freestad? I want to point out that each one of these cards has an area that's being represented. I'm looking at Central Carrollton here. We have Bocage, Algiers, and another. There are people from all over the city at this meeting tonight, just not Lakeview. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Sam from Central Carrollton Association. So we have the same problems. We've been working on our own, and we didn't realize everyone else is also working on it. So we're going to join the efforts. What I had put on the card was to point out that when you have drainage problems, you have mosquitoes. So we have other health efforts, other health effects, other than just on our cars. And with global warming, there's going to be more and more mosquitoes, more insect problems. So this is it's a bigger issue. And also in terms of creative funding, maybe we can get NIH or CDC to address some health issues.
Thank you. FJ Hebert, 6658 Memphis Street here. My question is, and I guess it goes to the council person. What happened to phase 3 of Florida Lee Street? Once you pay 4 years ago, it's shit.
We got one more thing here.
I'm very happy to be back into the Lakeview area. I brought my husband from Marrero, where he does have beautiful streets over there in the Marrero area. They're concrete with sidewalks. And he asked me why I brought him over to Lakeview. Where he's having to go, of course, like everybody else around the road. But thanks to Senator Edward Murray, he did help me get back into my house. I had a huge problem with the Road Home program, and then ultimately I was Road Home, and they did help me get back into the house. I am in it, I love it. I just wish my road did not have so many holes in it to where I can't go down on West End Boulevard. Also, affordably, I wish that road was finished. I can't go down affordably. I have to drive all around the different roads to just try to get home. But one of the other things too is I thought we were going to go priority. It seems like Harrison Avenue has been done not once but a couple times. because I feel like we have spent a lot of money on Harrison. The drainage, that definitely needs to be done on the field first, and then do the roads, because I've seen it many times where they fix the road, then the drainage starts messing up, they come in, tear up the roads, and then they never get them patched properly again. Thank you.
So we had three really good questions that are kind of different from each other. So what I'm asking is if somebody from the Sewage and Water Board can come up and maybe address the issue of when these streets are being repaired, what's going on with the broken pipes and the water and all that below them as well. You come on up, and then we'll jump to the next few questions after that.
Good evening, thank you. I'm Joe Backer, work with the Sewage and Water Board. And we work very closely with the Department of Public Works to coordinate a lot of those street repairs. Councilmember Guidry mentioned that we have about eight Department of Public Works engineers that are actually in the Sewage and Water Board offices right now. We work very closely together. So as we identify projects that we're moving together on, as the Water Board is moving forward on, it's very easy for us to just walk up a flight of stairs and talk to the Department of Public Works engineers and coordinate that activity. So it's much easier for us to get that work done, and we're able to coordinate that work to make sure that everybody's able to get the work done in a very timely manner, minimize the number of times that maybe the Department of Works pays the street and the Sewage and Water Board comes behind and does the sewer or the water lines right after that.
All right, so that leads to the next question, which is the water's filling up the potholes. The water that's standing in the potholes and ditches, is it increasing our health hazards to mosquito viruses, West Nile viruses and mosquitoes?
That is an excellent question. I was going to actually talk to the group offline, but since you brought it up, I certainly want to talk about it. And it's one of the beautiful things about this idea of having committees and subcommittees. Myself and my staff have been researching how it's done in other cities that are similar to our natural environment footprint, Amsterdam, Portland. We have never accurately, thoughtfully, and correctly figured out a way to deal with water in this town. And we build streets like we're in Texas, and then the water seeps away, it contracts, and now we've got the problem all over again. You've got to be more thoughtful when you go in to do a full and complete repair about thinking about our natural environment in certain areas. If you look at Portland, I'll share this information with the subcommittee that will be looking into it. But they have they have a drainage on the side that is built in that has certain plants that will stop mosquitoes from coming, but will also help the water seep at a rate that it does not harm the street. So we've got to be more thoughtful. These subcommittees can help us do that. But that's a very good question, because if we keep doing it the same old way, we're going to have the same old problems after we spend the money. We want to make sure that what we do this time can last. That's an excellent question.
So these last three questions are lake area specific, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Stephen, after. But if I can ask you to spend a little bit on, when will Fleur-de-Lis be completed? Are the Harrison Avenue crosswalks, brick pavers paid for out of city funds? No. Why was Canal Boulevard repavement stopped at Robert E. Lee when we thought the money was allocated before Katrina to go over Robert E. Lee?
Yes, and I want to tell you, I have asked some of these questions so many times that I get embarrassed to come to meetings and give the answers that I've been given, because the answers change. And there's always the pushing off of the date for Fleur-de-Lis and Canal Boulevard. So I am going to hand these over to the person who I have to ask, which is the Department of Public Works. And I want you to listen to his answer and write it down. And next month, if it changes, we're going to all just storm the Department of Public Works, okay? It is a conundrum as far as I can tell, and I'm sure that he could also answer about the pavers, but the city, you haven't paid twice for the pavers on Harrison.
Okay, no pressure at all. I feel like I'm signing up. So let's talk thoroughly phase 3. Right now, the designer is the final design. The designer is wrapping that up. I expect to see the final design in the department done by the end of the year, and construction to start at the beginning of next year. I know this is not, I understand this is not as fast as you want it done. This is not as fast as I want it done. I want this project done just as much as you do.
Who's to
But we gotta do it the right way. One of the challenges with doing the design is getting it done the right way and making sure that we meet all the state requirements, because this is an urban system project. This is cost share between the city and the state, so we need to make sure that we satisfy all the state requirements in doing this. The other piece of this project is, because it is a substantial amount of work, it's a complete reconstruction deal. We got to make sure we got the funding in place, and the cost estimate, depending on the scope of work, and as Cedric mentioned, depending on timing, that affects the cost. But right now, the schedule is design done by the end of the year and start construction early next year. What I will tell you is we've got the schedules for all the DPW projects posted on the DPW website, and we keep that website updated so you can watch it. And if you feel like you need to storm DPW, and I'm not advocating for that, I would ask you to go to the website first and make sure you got the most current information. As far as Canal Boulevard is also a complete reconstruction. It's a bond-funded project. It's also an urban systems project where we cost share the city and the state the cost of construction of the project. This is another one that hadn't progressed as fast as I'd like it to, and it's gone through a number of scope changes. But we got the designer back on track. It is in design. Based on the schedule I have in front of me, it looks like the design's going to be complete. The preliminary design is going to be complete this summer, within the next month or so, and then we're going to start final design. Final design is supposed to go until sometime middle of next year, and then we'll start construction after that. Too slow, I got that. Trust me. So we're going to take a look. We're going to take a look at how we could work this. But that's the current schedule right now. As far as the pay, I believe the last question I had was pavers Harrison Avenue.
I think what was the last question? Pavers, the brick pavers on Harrison.
Okay.
All they want to know is who pays.
Okay, we did the questions already and the comments. If you would like to speak to Lieutenant Colonel Jernigan afterwards, we could set that up. I think the question was, who's paying for replacing the bricks on Harrison Avenue? That's not taxpayers, already paid for, right?
The project, the scope of work for the Harrison Avenue streetscape did include some brick pavers. In the course of the project, we noticed that when it was completed, it didn't meet all the project specifications for the Department of Public Works. We got with the contractor and said, hey, look, we need to do this better. We need to make sure it meets the intent, the design specifications of the project. It's under warranty. They're going to go, they took corrective action. We're only paying for it one time. This is not, we're going to pay for the project one time. Any actions that are taken to make corrections, that's on the contractor's nickel. It's not on the city's nickel. And we're going to make sure before we accept the project that it's complete in accordance with our specifications.
Colonel, thank you a lot. Everybody here tonight, I just want to tell you how gratifying it is. Colonel, we got all the sitting over there said we wouldn't take your job for all the money in the world. So we really appreciate what you and your staff are doing. We know it's a tough job. I want to thank all the elected officials that came tonight. Cedric, thank you again. And most importantly, thank you to all of you who came. I was about to say it's incredibly gratifying to see that the ideas that were spurned by just a very small group that resonated through the whole city. We will keep this fight up. You have to join us in this. So thanks again for coming tonight.